Okay, it's 6 o'clock, call the meeting to order. Pursuant to Mass General Law 7C 30A 20F, after notifying the chair of the public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session for a meeting of a public body and may transmit the meeting through any media. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recording. Meeting being recorded by the town of Barrington, CTSV, and Berkshire County. Any members of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. The listing of agenda items are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. Board's announcement statement. Bill.
Nothing, thank you.
Ben.
Nothing.
Doctor?
Nothing.
All set, thank you.
Okay, I just have one thing, as I started last meeting, we were talking about freedom of information request. And at the beginning of the meeting, just to understand what staff is going through and what maybe a financial request later, during budget time. There are right now 16 open FOIs, so that's 16 distinct ones happen to be from the last time. And I'll go through some of them. One is about cameras, police department cameras, Brookside Road Bridge, South County Connector, All-Star Salvage. There's at least 3 about All-Star Salvage, West Sheffield Road project, license plate readers, All-Star Salvage, another one. Police department salaries for the past 10 years, police reports, redactions. And West Sheffield Road parcels, all perfectly fine, all perfectly legal, but is taking up a lot of staff time, and some people don't understand how much time these can take up between town manager, town clerk, and other staff members. So I thought every meeting we would just really just go through those quickly, so everyone would get a handle on what some of the time is being used for. Town managers report.
Thank you. So my town manager's report for August 24, 2026. On Thursday, August 20th, a portion of the former Cook's Garage building collapsed, raising concerns about the stability of the remaining structure and the potential for additional debris entering the Housatonic River. I do want to sincerely thank town staff who responded immediately along with DEP. In addition to the site visit, police and fire conducted an exterior safety assessment and a follow-up drone inspection to evaluate conditions without placing personnel at unnecessary risk. I am meeting with staff this week to review the findings, determine the appropriate path forward for securing or addressing the remaining structure, and coordinate any necessary environmental and regulatory requirements. As part of that discussion, we will also be identifying anticipated costs, applicable procurement requirements, potential funding sources, and any authorization that may be needed before the town proceeds with additional work. And I will keep you all posted as steps are determined. Thursday, August 20th, a busy day. The Department of Public Works successfully completed the planned stabilization work on East Sheffield Road. Although the town had advertised that the road could remain closed until 3 p.m., DPW team was able to complete the work within a single day and reopen the road ahead of schedule, minimizing the disruption to residents and motorists. I do want to thank DPW staff for the planning, coordination, and hard work in getting this important work accomplished safely and efficiently, and importantly, getting the road back open to the community sooner than anticipated. As we approach the end of the summer season, lifeguard coverage at Lake Mansfield will be limited as many of Berkshire South's seasonal lifeguards return to school. The town has been working closely with Berkshire South to communicate available coverage and ensure residents and visitors know when lifeguards will be on duty. Lake Mansfield Beach remains open, but on days when a lifeguard is not present, swimming is at the individual's own risk, and visitors are encouraged to use appropriate caution and closely supervise children. I appreciate Berkshire South and our town staff for continuing to coordinate coverage throughout the remainder of the season. And I especially appreciate the community's understanding as we navigate the realities of late summer seasonal staffing. On Saturday, August 22nd, the town was proud to join the Du Bois Freedom Center and members of the community and state for unveiling of a permanent interactive storytelling kiosk honoring the extraordinary life and legacy of Elizabeth Freeman. The kiosk now stands in front of Town Hall on the historic site of the courthouse where Freeman successfully pursued her freedom in 1781 and helped advance the principle that slavery was incompatible with the Massachusetts Constitution. The event was an important opportunity to honor Freeman's courage while creating a lasting and accessible way for residents and visitors to engage with her story and its significance to Great Barrington, Massachusetts, and the nation. The unveiling also marked the town's recognition of August 22nd as Elizabeth Freeman Day, ensuring that her remarkable legacy continues to be remembered, shared, celebrated in the community where she helped make history. Today, I am pleased to welcome James Massey as Great Barrington's new health agent. James officially rejoined the town team today and will work closely with the Board of Health, town departments, residents, businesses, and supporting important public health services in our community relies on. Please join me in welcoming James back to Great Barrington, and we are excited to have him here on our team. We do look forward to the experience, collaboration, and commitment of public service he brings to the role. Today, town staff participated in a 2-hour procurement training led by Patricia Burke and Renee O'Rourke of the Commonwealth's Operational Services Division, or OSD, focused on making better use of statewide contracts and the Combis purchasing system. The hands-on session walked staff through. They actually were here. They came from the east side to come here. So a 3-hour trip just to come here and sit with 20 of your staff members. A hands-on session walked staff through navigating Combis, locating statewide and tradesperson contracts, searching for vendors and items, verifying that vendors are properly awarded under the state contract, and placing orders through the system. The training is part of our continued effort to strengthen the town's procurement practices by giving staff practical tools and a clearer understanding of the resources available to municipalities through OSD and Combis. And lastly, planning is underway for a fall training session for members of the town's boards, committees, and commissions to be conducted in partnership with town council. The training will provide practical guidance on the roles and responsibilities of public bodies, municipal officials, with particular attention to the open meeting law, public records laws, state ethic laws, and the town charter. The goal is not simply compliance, but to give our volunteer members a stronger understanding of their responsibilities, greater confidence in navigating issues when they arise, and clear guidance on when and where to seek assistance. Additional information, including the date and format, will be shared as plans are finalized. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have approval of minutes that start with July 27th and July 28th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of July 27th, 2026 and July 28th, 2026 as in the packet.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Just one small thing from me. I recused on a number of things that intersected with my job. And one of them is not in here, the license for the CDC. My recusal's not in there, but the 4-0 vote is in, so.
We will add that in. Anyone else? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Next.
The August 4th one I was not present for, so. Myself.
Same for them. So Garfield, motion to approve?
The motion to approve the August 4th, 2026 meeting as stated.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Licenses and permits. John, put your hand down, so. Okay, licenses and permits. Application from Shayna Salo of Roadshow Concepts for a new pawnbrokers and secondhand dealers license for precious metals buying event located at 249 Stockbridge Road. The specific dates and times of the events are to be determined. Can you give us a little more information on the dates and times?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So we're looking to having events on September 15th through September 19th, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. as well as possibly November 14th. And then December 8th through December 12th.
And all of that will be 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
9 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Fairfield by Marriott Inn and Suite inside of the conference room.
Okay.
Was it just November 14th or was it dates after?
November. Just November 14th, correct?
The dates?
No. You just said December 14th. There was no range there, right? Just one
For
day.
December, it was December 8th through 12th.
No, November.
November
November
10th through
14th.
14th.
Okay,
It's always a 5-day
Yeah.
event.
okay.
But man,
Yeah,
you said that's possible. When will we know if that's actually gonna happen?
I'm not sure. I can apply for another license closer to that date if you guys would like me to. As of right now, the other 2 dates
would.
are confirmed.
okay, so what two are confirmed?
September 15th through 19th and December 8th through 12th. I have the hotel contracts and everything for those dates. The other date, it just lists as pending still, so I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the application for the roadshow concepts for a new pawnbrokers and secondhand dealers license, a precious metal buying event located at 249 Stockbridge Road from September 15th through the 19th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and December 8th through the 12th at 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Do I have a second?
Second quick question.
Go ahead.
I guess I'm kind of fixed on when this is possible it's gonna happen on the 14th. And I wouldn't mind seeing her coming through to getting another permit.
We didn't put the forward, it wasn't part of the
Okay,
motion. Anyone else?
It's so, sorry, this is all just contained inside of the hotel, right? That,
This is just inside of the conference room at the hotel?
Yes, that is correct.
Anyone else?
well, I'm just a little confused then, I guess. So what's gonna happen with this 14th possible? That's what I was,
Yeah,
yeah, I want them to come in
Yeah.
again, thank you.
Yeah, it wasn't part of the motion. All in favor?
all right,
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is to review a proposal. Oh, I have a hand up, hold on. Don, Rusted, go ahead.
Hello,
Don, it looks like you're on. Yeah, go ahead, John.
yeah, hi, I was having trouble
Yeah.
connecting during the just approval of minutes. And
Yeah.
just want to be recognized to say that 2 weeks ago, I submitted by email a 200-word addition or to the minutes for the July 6th meeting of the select board.
Right, that's not on the agenda, John.
The agenda is in error today. You said, Steve, you said on July 10th, 2 weeks ago this evening, that the minutes for July 6th could be passed over until July 24th. It's an error.
Right, we didn't get it on this agenda. It was not on this agenda.
Well, it should have been on the agenda because you said on the public record that it was going to be on the agenda for the 24th. And I,
Well, even if I did say that, but it didn't get put on, so it's gonna have to be the next one.
well,
Cause we can't vote on it now because it's not, the open meeting law wouldn't allow us to do that.
well, I think it's a highly irregular procedure. When you give when you say in public recorded session that an item is going to be postponed until the meeting 2 weeks hence, that follow through. I mean, so
It was omitted, John. Mistakes happen.
okay. So will we deal with it 2 weeks from now?
Yes.
The minutes for April 6th, the minutes for July
Well,
6th have the
Yeah,
minutes.
we're in, John, can I finish? We're in between recorders also, so people are doing our minutes, so we will try to get it on the next one.
It's
We
just
are in between people.
okay. It's just a simple, straightforward matter that the minutes for July 6th have not been passed or voted on
I
by
realize
this
that.
board. Okay.
Thank you, John. Okay. Next is a review the proposed 9/11 memorial at 37 State Road. Come on up.
Evening, James Mead, Deputy Chief of the Fire Department. This is, John Morris, retired FDNY, who, luckily acquired this piece of steel for us. So I've given you guys some pictures that we're hoping to keep somewhat quiet for right now, for hopefully an unveiling that day. This has been over a year in the works. Andy Morrow started this a year ago. So we're trying to make this happen. The pieces are finally coming together, so we're just looking for your approval on that. It's gonna be centered on the hose tower in front of the building. Really no, it's just gonna be set on the ground. Stone's about 4 foot tall. With the steel, it's gonna stand somewhere between 5, 6 foot tall. So that's what we're looking for your approval, is put this wonderful memorial in front of our firehouse. So that we at least, we never
Just to be
forget.
clear, because this is an open meeting, if someone requests a picture of this, we have to roll it. Any questions? I know this is near and dear to Andy, so I'm glad to see that this is gonna happen. So,
I make a motion to approve the 9/11 memorial at 37 State Road.
Wait a second.
any questions or discussion?
Just a thank you for putting this together.
Thank you all. I'll be getting invites and hopefully Liz and the chairman of Selectboard to have a few words at the ceremony.
Say that. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for your work on this.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Next is the update on from Mass DOT regarding project number 612183, the Division Street Bridge. Yes. Thank you for coming to our meeting.
Hello.
Yeah, hi Francesca. You want to give us the update, please? That would be
I
wonderful.
think the PM is there, Giovanni, isn't she there in the meeting?
Yes,
Good
you
evening,
are.
everyone.
Hello.
So,
And Mark the Balder, the bridge engineer, is also at this meeting, so we're here.
Right here.
Oh, perfect. I thought I recognized. Usually Zoom.
so- just wanted to give like quick update on Division Street project. This project got advertised in June 6, 2026. There is like NTP issued to the contractor on August 18, 2026. So now once project get advertised and contractor receives NTP, it goes to district, which is like Francisca and team. The construction team takes over. then there will be pre-construction meeting. And after the pre-construction meeting, the contractor will tell when the construction will start. And we are expecting to finish the construction by June 7, 2028.
Just to add to that, I've been told that the contractor plans on starting in the spring.
Right.
Yeah, we haven't issued yet the pre-construction conference date. So when we set up the day, as the contractor got awarded, last on the 18th, like she say, we will need to schedule the pre-con meeting, and the town will be invited to that. And that's where the
Right.
contractor is going to lay out, all the processes. But as of now, he's not coming until this spring. And this a contractor called Mass Building and Bridge, we don't have many projects with this contractor in this side of town.
Question, Phil?
So just to clarify, so the plan is the work would begin in the spring of 27 and be completed by June of 28. Do I have that right?
Yes, that's the completion date. The scheduled
Okay,
completion.
and are we able to talk about the projected next use for the Division Street metallic bridge? Relative,
It's not theirs, that's ours.
Yeah, it's owned by the town.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So is it still the plan that we're using that bridge for another purpose?
I don't believe anything has been determined. It was originally for Brookside, but we're moving in a different direction for Brookside. So, we're not, because of the timing for Division Street Bridge that
Okay.
has pushed, it's just not the schedules are not complementing each other. So, yeah.
Okay, so that bridge, I appreciate that. So that bridge that's our bridge. So we need to figure out what we're gonna do with it when it's freed up by this construction project.
That's right.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Other questions?
So probably just stating the obvious, but I'm assuming if it's not going to start in the spring, the temporary bridge will be in use all the way up until right before.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Good.
Anyone else?
Just usually when you hear about these bridge projects, they go on for a lot longer than what you're suggesting here. Is this getting expedited, or is this contractor just committed to getting it done faster?
No, that's the completion date that we gave them, and our Boston construction office looks at these things. And they set the completion date. Being that it's not a full bridge replacement, they're reusing the abutments.
Okay,
That does save some time.
nice.
So, I would expect that date will most likely be met.
Right.
Plus, the bridge is going to be closed. It's not a stage, so if that accelerates the construction too.
Yeah, that's a good point. Anyone else? Thank you very much. It's important for everyone to hear, and we appreciate working with us.
All right. Good night. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Next is consider and possible vote on the appointment of Art Lumenthal as associate member of the planning board through June 30th, 2027. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Volunteering to do it.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
It's unanimous. If we're gonna talk, could we take it to the hallway, please? It's really distracting. Next is a review and possible vote on a letter to the Department of Public Utilities regarding Housatonic Waterworks. I will read the letter for those in the audience. Dear Commissioners, the Town of Great Barrington writes the Department of Public Utilities regarding a range of ongoing problems related to Housatonic Waterworks Company. The town is grateful for the department's sustained attention to these matters and recognizes the significant effort the department has devoted to oversight of the company. Despite those efforts, however, conditions have continued to deteriorate, and the town must respectfully request additional intervention. The problems are threefold. First, the pace of the required filtration plant installation remains far too slow. The April 26, 2024 settlement agreement stated that the manganese filtration system was, quote, currently expected to be in service in the fourth quarter of 2024, end quote. Since then, the town has witnessed multiple delays, each attributed to third-party problems, with the latest projection now targeting fall of 2026. The company's recurring excuses have eroded public confidence and are difficult for customers and government officials alike to accept. Accordingly, the town, by this letter to the department and copy of the DEP and other government stakeholders, must express its continuing and growing consternation with the company and request that the additional measures be taken by the department and DEP to expedite filtration plant installation. Second, a significant number of customers have experienced water pressure too low to meet basic service standards. These pressure problems have a direct impact on the daily lives of town residents and must be remediated. The company has attempted to address the pressure problem by acquiring water from the Great Barrington Fire District through a temporary hose connection. The town was recently alarmed to learn that the company has failed to pay the Great Barrington Fire District for this supply, accumulating roughly $100,000 in overdue bills over a 6 to 9 month period. Too many of the company's customers have endured truly inadequate service for far too long. The town appreciates that the department's performance-based rate making in the last rate case was designed to create financial incentives for prompt construction of the filtration plant, and recognizes the department's constructive approach in fashioning that remedy. The town also understands that the DEP's financial penalties were intended to keep the company on schedule. Those penalties, however, appear too low to have a meaningful impact. The company's $100,000 delinquent payable to the Great Barrington Fire District easily dwarfs the $3,000 penalty amounts. Should the Great Barrington Fire District be compelled to terminate service to the company, conditions will become much worse. Third, the town has limited options for achieving a lasting resolution. Over decades, it's sought to address these issues through cooperative means, including recent efforts to negotiate the purchase of the company's assets pursuant to the town's purchase option in the 1897 charter. Despite those efforts, a negotiated acquisition has not been successful, leaving the parties without a mutually agreed upon price. As a result, the determination of the value of the company's assets is now before the department. Given the significance of that valuation to future resolution of these matters, the town looks forward to participating fully in the process and assisting the department in its review, whose expertise in these proceedings the town values, so that the parties may obtain clarity regarding the value of the assets and move towards a final resolution. Thank you for your continued dedication to this matter and to the residents the department serves. And this will be signed by the town of Great Barrington Select Board. So, discussion by the Select Board.
Agree with everything the letter said. The deep irony of a company that absolutely has no qualms about going after people for not paying their bills, for receiving a substandard product to their homes, not paying their own bills to the town, stands out from this, and we can see some progress from our friends at the DEP.
Well, yeah, so I think it's a good letter. I've made some suggestions to the letter. Some were accepted, some were not accepted.
Not by this board. But...
Not, but yeah, I guess by our special counsel relating to Lieutenant Warwick. So just in the interest of time, I'm happy to approve this letter. But some of the language that was taken out, I think, was a little more was very direct and perhaps a little abrupt, but I felt it was very truthful. I'm disappointed it's not in there, but again, in the interest of time, just getting something out the door, I'm happy to support this letter.
And, Steve, I just want to clarify for the public that, Phil, you sent me those
Right,
comments.
right,
The board has
right.
not seen any individual board member comments. It
Yes.
has all been funneled through me to
Correct.
council.
Point well
So
taken.
we have not violated any open meeting laws in discussion of this letter.
Good,
Thank
I
you.
agree. Thank you for correcting me there, but that's an important point. Okay.
Do I have a motion to approve this one?
So moved.
Second,
Any other discussion?
well, just a little bit, I did read that it's probably nice to. Pat, DEP on the back a little bit, but I wouldn't mind it a little more force.
Anyone else? All in favor?
Aye.
The order is unanimous, please. Thank you. Next is a discussion of the seasonal communities grant program applications and a recommendation.
In your packet, I submitted a memo outlining that there is, now that we are, the town officially accepted the seasonal communities designation, we now are eligible for grants and funding up to, I believe $84,000 at minimum. So there are some parameters that we need to obviously fit when we're applying for this money. And Chris Rembold and I had put our heads together on some options, which is in the memo I submitted, 4 options for you to consider. This is just preliminary options. You can think of other things if you've thought of other things. But my first recommendation is to put the money towards a consultant to assist us with producing a housing production plan, which is in your revised strategic priorities that we'll be looking at in a little bit more in depth for the finalization of it at your next meeting. That also, there's a benefit for putting money towards the housing production plan because that is a component of the master plan. So you have the open space and recreation plan that you just completed and adopted. And a housing production plan actually tackles that element of a master plan. So it's not piecemealing a master plan, but it still tackles a lot of the necessary evaluation and collaboration of the community in assessing what we want moving forward. So that, though, there's a silver lining in all of this. Chris just got a quote from BRPC and I believe it was $30,000 or $35,000. So we still have about $45,000 left remaining. So we have a second option to consider in the grant. So we can tackle a couple of different things. And so my proposal of options goes actually in order of preference. That the second would be year-round housing trust fund, evaluating that because that's a component of the seasonal designation that we have discussed during the joint meeting with the planning board and deciding if the affordable housing trust can do it or is it have to be a separate trust fund. But I believe Chris and I were talking about it, we can pretty much do almost all of it, with the exception of number 4. If you would like to do number 4 instead and actually South Main Street housing related pedestrian and infrastructure improvements, that $40,000 could go towards engineering services to make improvements. And so that could assist us with expediting the project a little bit quicker, obviously expediting it. So these are just options, but there are a lot more, and that's what tonight's agenda items for discussion.
Liz, thank you for this, but can you clarify, with respect to option 4, the South Main Street related pedestrian improvements?
Yes.
Does the town need money right now to implement certain improvements?
So the way that the capital article in town meeting in the spring of May 2nd, I believe was our town meeting. We had a capital article for funding for that specific improvements, but that would really, the way that it was written allows us to utilize it for engineering plus construction. So this way it allows a little bit, frees up more money to put towards construction of the sidewalk. 250,000 is not gonna get us much for the sidewalk component of it, but at least the 40,000 can go towards engineering of the actual crosswalk, putting a median in between, and then working on the engineering of the sidewalk installation, connecting it to the services further down the road, so.
We have intermittent complaints, I don't know if they're accurate or not, about the warning lights, they're not being fully functional.
Yeah,
So, just as a short-term critical need, you know, if there's work that we need to do now to make those lights work,
yes.
then I would support using that money for that in the near-term future. But again, I don't feel I know enough about what are there operational issues with those lights? And if so, do we have current funds to do that with? And do we need additional funds?
So the current assessment, I know the questions had arisen in the last couple of weeks. And our interim DPW director was out on vacation and we're planning for his nuptials. So he's back today he's returned, so he has been assigned to examine. There were some signs from Mass DOT that we were just made recently aware of that maybe were accepted back in the spring, we don't know, so he's looking into that. Those are immediate needs, but engineering, as you know, Phil, takes a little bit of time, and so Steve is working with Ty and Bond as well, prioritizing it. We have our meeting later this week to talk about that and make sure that we can actually work on engineering the actual intersection and speed reduction measures, such as an actual similar to Main Street here, putting a median in the center where pedestrians can kind of land an island, and then it'll squash in and make people slow down that way too. So those are the things that we're examining, and that will be presented to the board on the decision. So that is also incorporated in Ty and Bond's contract that I'm working on, is that they will come before you to show you what is being proposed. So we could have public input before actual construction and implementation of that is, but immediate gratification, Steve's looking at where those signs are and what were the conditions that Mass DOT had placed for installing them, where they were. We don't know any details, and that was brand new news to me, so.
I think it's a great idea. How far down South Main Street are we going? I'd like to see something done, at least below the senior center as well, as you're approaching it, and also coming down. And I gotta be honest, it's when you start coming past the big Y, you don't even know you're speeding up, and I think the tendency is going much too fast.
There is complete streets money and efforts that have been made in the past, but I think we're looking at the crosswalk by Reed Street. Is that the location that where the accident occurred in January or February time? That is where we're looking, and then installing a sidewalk, because on the west side of the road, on the big Y side, there isn't a sidewalk from there to get safely to Big Y. So that is what we're looking at, and that matches seasonal communities designation for grant funding, is actually adding those connections for people who need access to services. So that's why it's being recommended as an option for you to consider endorsing, that Chris and I submitted a grant application for funding for engineering of that. But the remainder of that partial field, that would be something that Chris and I can tie in with complete streets opportunities and continuing the connection further down. And that may actually be revealed in further funding of seasonal communities designation. Okay.
So just to wrap it up, that I think that there's a real immediate need for that, to make sure that that particular crossing has safety lights that are in. And maybe it's hard to determine that tonight, but if that critical need requires additional funding that's not currently authorized, then I would support allocating a portion of that money to that. But there's a number of what ifs there. But so.
I mean, it seems to me that the housing production plan is the most inviting. And then also number 4, which is
Yeah.
the, that area of town engineering. Well, those seem to be the two, if we can fit that into our budget, it seems to be the most inviting.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bill.
And with respect to the housing production plan, I agree with what Steve said, although I would encourage us to direct it in some particular direction. So for example, you know, I'm looking at page 3, the town can help Great Barrington identify housing production and preservation priorities. And then later on, we talks about the roadmap can help us determine where future resources should be directed for those investments. My concern is I don't have a good feel for those future resources for the town, you know, allocating specific monies, you know, other than what it's doing right now for housing production. So I would really support a focus on, you know, I guess it's bullet point 5, identifying potential housing sites and development opportunities. That information will be communicated to private investors, private developers to help us meet our housing needs. So just to summarize, the town of Great Barrington is not a real estate developer. You know, we've got very limited resources to do that. It's a critical need. So I would just want us to focus this work in the production plan on how to attract and outside capital to help us with our housing challenges and to facilitate those investors becoming interested in what we have here.
I think that's what the other bullet points are for. To kind of put together the whole holistic picture of exactly how do we make the environment. How do we get people to build here? I think just focusing on just the one limits it. I think we have to have the full plan in place, and that's kind of what the proposal is.
I think that was the point of those bullets, was that if we did number 1, those would all fall into place in some manner.
Yeah,
You're skeptical.
I'm skeptical on that. So another way of saying it, I just want us to prioritize, you know, bullet point 5.
Garfield?
Yeah, Reed Street is right where the bagel place.
Yes.
But if I remember correctly, I could be wrong, I think we've had some fatalities
It's,
way below that, so I would like to make sure that it's covered as well below that, because I think that's where the fatalities were, if I remember correctly, is that right? Anyone remember that?
So let's not get into detail.
Well,
The problem is we only have a limited amount of money.
I understand
Yeah.
that, but where the fatalities are, I think is important. I think we need to make sure
yes,
those,
yes.
even
That
though,
as
you know,
well.
the street's nice, but Reed Street's nice, but the other places to.
I think the Reed Street one is the closest intersection to refer to.
There's 2 intersections.
Right,
Southern.
Yes, there are.
because it's a horseshoe basically road. Yeah. So.
And
So then, my 2 cents on this here, I do think the housing production plan and needs assessment. Is a priority, and I guess I was. Maybe reading it a little differently than Phil, because I was reading that as if, it will help us promote private capital to do this,
No.
Put it in their hands, you know, so. It makes it clear, you know, we've had a lot of meetings, we've heard a lot of people, and there's the middle housing section that feels very left out, and I think this will help actually come with a consolidated plan and pick up those areas of need, and then with it being folded into the master plan going out to private capital, or however you want to say it, or and hope having people interested in helping us build out so everybody can have the house they want here, Great Barrington, who's the town.
Last comment, so if we have a quote from Berkshire Regional Planning, if they can put together this comprehensive housing plan for $30,000 or $40,000, that's terrific. If they then say, well, it's a large project, we ran out of money 2/3 of the way through, and we didn't get to identifying development opportunities, then I would be very disappointed. So that's the point I'm trying to get across.
The benefit of, we discussed this during the strategic planning workshop, Bill. The benefit of a housing production plan in itself, when it is produced, it is an advertisement to investors that they can look to, use as a resource and say, oh, they've got their stuff together. They know what they want. This is good because they have a plan. They've outlined what kind of housing they want, where they want it. It's an actual producing plan, and then they can sign into that. But as of right now, we do not have anything saying, this is what Great Barrington wants for housing. Where do we want it? What type of housing? And also, especially, this is a perfect opportunity. Now that we're a seasonal community, it can complement that actual designation. So we are in compliance, and we're generating the right kind of housing.
Yeah, I make a motion to approve the seasonal communities grant on option 1 and option 4, recommendation 1 and recommendation 4.
Do I have a second?
Sorry.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. Okay, next is donation acceptance. 2 donations to the Claire K Senior Center of $100 and Great Barrington Libraries of $250. Donors wish to remain anonymous. Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Good. Next is the organizational alignment plan for transportation.
Everybody's waiting for. Okay. So first of all, I want to begin by stating that I do appreciate Tate's July report, the former transportation director report that he sent out, and the work that he put into it. It did give us all an important snapshot of the South County Connector in a particular moment of time. It included some very real operational, staffing, and organizational challenges that the community needed to understand. But it is important also that we do not confuse an assessment of where we were with a conclusion of where we can go. And that's what tonight is for. What I took from the report is not that Great Barrington obviously should step away from transportation. And I said this at your previous meeting in my town manager report. I feel quite the opposite. It actually reinforced for me how important this service is to the people and to the communities, all of the communities that it depends on, and how important that it is. If we are going to continue providing it, we build the organizational structure necessary to do it well and do it sustainably. Since late April or even prior to that, my focus with Tate has been on that next chapter. We have been looking carefully at the people, the structure, the customer experience, the financial controls, and the operational systems behind the service. And this was not done in isolation. This was done with the entire town staff. Of finance, of the town planner / town manager, and all of the people involved with supporting transportation. We began redefining positions and responsibilities. We began creating clearer accountability. And we began also working on treating transportation not as an isolated program, but as a municipal service that should operate with the same expectations we have for every other town department. That does not mean, though, preserving everything exactly as it existed before. In fact, I think that would be a miss, that would miss the lesson of Tate's report. Keeping the service does not mean keeping the same structure. The question before us is not whether the connector has faced challenges. It has, definitely. The question is whether we believe those challenges can be addressed and whether this service is important enough to the Great Barrington community and the region to do the work necessary to address those challenges. And I believe it is. So I view Tate's report as an important part of the assessment that I conducted. Our responsibility now is to take that information, align it with the select board's priorities and the needs of the communities that we are in charge to serve and that have been given that responsibility, and also act on it. And that's what this plan, I believe, outlines. That being said, I had submitted to you on the 14th of August, so it gave you 10 days to review a 50-some page plan. Because I don't have blanket. I give you a very thorough report and I give you also a plan moving forward that is something I feel that it can be done very successfully and achieve what this is, why it's very important to bring transportation formally under the umbrella of Great Barrington. It is important when you're looking at a service that we provide in any capacity, whether it be a pilot program or a formal program, that it is mission focused. That that staff, that everybody is aligned, the actual process, the people and the places where services occur that are committed to providing quality services to the entire community through good planning, cost-effective measures. And that it is also aligned with your, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, that it is aligned with your strategic priorities. And that is where this plan moves us forward to achieving. As of right now, like I mentioned in my report, transportation is under the planning department. It is not actually a division per se. It is really more of a pilot program that is still on paper like a pilot program, and it is also though a regional service. So it's kind of tucked under, and as you can see, there are multiple layers within the organization that it doesn't actually directly report to the town manager position. And I'm not speaking Liz Hartsgrove reporting to, I'm talking about the town manager seat, okay? I think also I need to be very clear on that. This plan is to move forward with anyone sitting in the town manager seat. It's not Liz Hartsgrove for what I planned, okay? So again, why we're here is that transportation, through my assessment, is that it had grown since my 9 months that I've been here. I have pondered why we still call it kind of a pilot program when it has actually grown in size larger than the police department. Yeah. That is critical reality to face. It is so successful and such an identified need. It is literally larger than the police department
In terms of.
personnel.
Okay.
So when you look at the police department as an example, or any other department, and how your town, and going back to this organizational structure, and how we work together. And you think about all the departments that supply support to the police department. And then when you consider that a pilot program is actually requiring much more than that, it is something that we do need to understand and talk about. Okay. So. But it also, with identifying the realities, is that Great Barrington is, by all of the reports that Tate had provided us, which we all know, is that Great Barrington is the South County hub. There are more rides that start and finish in Great Barrington than all of the other communities that we serve. But we also are the connector to other towns and other services that may not be actually received here in our community. So that is why we're here, is trying to figure out how do we balance what the needs are of the community and then also what the needs are internally. And that is my job. To make sure that the community has those community connections, that they can get to work, that they can get to actual economic services, that they can get to their doctor's appointments, that they can get to school, that they can have a quality of life that is attainable and sustainable. So as I mentioned in my report, and as you recall, about almost a year ago, I talked to you during my interview that I would be looking at all town departments through a framework of evaluation, and through assessment, through alignment, and then through action. And so I have taken the 9 months to look at actually all town departments. However, this proposal is strictly for transportation. But my staff will acknowledge that we have done an exercise of actually looking at how the relationships between each of the departments interact with each other. And that has been part of my assessment, actually, is looking at the relationships, whether they're strong, medium, or weak, and where I need to make adjustments with the actual organization to achieve what your strategic priorities are and whatnot. So that has been an exercise that has been done by all 120 members of your staff. So this is not something that, again, that Liz put together and threw spaghetti on the wall to see if it sticks. It is literally something that has been put together in a comprehensive manner for months over time, that we have been assessing and building alignment between each of the departments. How do they interact? How do they impact each other positively and negatively? And then where do we need to take action to change and make improvements and enhance the service as well as enhancing it internally? So in my report, I also talked about how services are delivered. And my staff knows this backwards and forwards. They know that we deliver services in 3 areas: through its people, through its places, and through its processes. So who actually delivers the service? So when I'm looking at, and all of us are looking, your staff is looking at evaluating an actual service or a program, this is what we're looking at, is who delivers the services and where exactly do they actually occur in the vehicles. So we're looking at transit tonight, vehicles and community destinations, this actual stops, and the technology, the websites, and the regional connections. And then the processes. How do they work internally, effectively, efficiently, matching the actual service operational standards of safety, of courtesy, of presentation, of efficiency and teamwork, and making sure that they are all aligned with those standards. So in addition to my own assessment of the internal workings of transportation and all of the departments interactively together, I've had the privilege of actually hearing from the community, not just from my own assessments, but even when we had a moment where the VRTA was reducing services in the early spring, we had done an outreach to the community on what kinds of impacts that was going to have. And I believe we heard from, I think, over 50 or almost 60 individuals within 1 week's time of how that would impact people. So I have heard from the community, even from back in March when we did that outreach, that it is important for the community of Great Barrington to keep it local. That they are worried that they're going to lose control over the sustainability and the consistency of transportation that keeps them connected. And the commitment. So they want to actually have improved services. They don't want reduction of services, okay? And that customer experience and having an interaction with the drivers and a relationship is very important to them. And that we need to make it sustainable, that financially, as you know, from our discussions over the budget, it's very important to understand that services can actually support itself. And that too is something that I had to include in my analysis for this and making sure it was responsible for taxpayers. So from the assessment, and this is again just a snapshot of the 50-some pages I pulled together for you guys, all is where do we keep the actual service but changing the structure? So we are keeping what works and we're changing how it's managed and actually delivered. So community transportation that connects people to what matters most, obviously we're keeping. The local management decision-making that actually is rooted in Great Barrington, that is something that the community has said very loudly that they want to retain. Also the regional connections, the mobility and support of South County. And that it's public service mission focused for access, equity, and independence. And creating a foundation that blossoms the trust or develops it and enhances it for community support, partnership with our businesses, and also having a shared purpose. So some of the things though in the assessment where I will shift into the actual action items are the changes of how we actually manage it, is the internal structure, the governance of it. As a pilot program, I had identified a number of examples and only a few were actually within the report that I provided you, but it was consistently exampled that there was a need for it to be held to the same standards as other department. And so that is a change that I am in charge of creating less silos and more overlap in the systems for each other on, and through actually how the organization is structured. So that is my proposal, and including making sure that financial systems, the budgeting is accountable and is reflective of the actual priorities and values of the community, which you are elected to represent. The personnel systems and the roles and the professional development also needs to be consistent and applicable for if it works or if it's applicable to one department, it should be applicable to all departments and all services that we provide. So this is bringing transportation up into that officially. The same thing with procurement and contracts and vendor management, and making sure that they are aligned with the town standards. And then reporting and performance management, also especially with personnel, performance management and continuous improvement. Those expectations and how it's changing and what standards and how is it connected to the town manager for accountability. So in my plan, I know this is a lot, but I'm just giving you a snapshot visually that in the plan, I did outline an actual integration implementation plan of checks where key actions for each of the steps involved with implementing such a plan that involves changes within personnel for the people, the places, and the processes, and bringing it into the actual organizational structure of accountability and consistency across the board. So that is in there for people to look at and see that it is much more involved. And especially, it needs to be integrated, like I said, and I'll say it again, it needs to be integrated with achieving the select board's strategic priorities. One of them I see is economic development and making sure that people are connected to the services, the economic, making sure that they can be supported through special events, even that we have them timed correctly. Areas, and how do you actually deliver a service? How do you talk to somebody? How is it visually representing the town as well as a brand itself that we are showcasing the town? So through implementation here, again, I'm going to be focusing on the people, the place, and the process. The first that I am, and this is within my proposal and my plan moving forward, is officially establishing transportation into a department. So the current structure, as in my report, it states that there are multiple layers in the actual transportation pilot program, the South County Connector. It creates siloed functions, the way that the positions are actually written and crafted, that then even assign duties that should be to actual town employees were delegated to senior tax work-off individuals. And there are a lot of identified risks in my plan that I had outlined to demonstrate that these are things that as a pilot program may be acceptable, but on something that is much larger than even a police department and accepting cash and accepting things, we have to have standards in place that then the town manager can make sure that there is continuity across all departments in how they operate. So my proposed structure is actually, as you can see, even with the current structure, the director of public transportation has 3 layers before getting down to the transit actual team members that are the drivers in it. And I have seen through my observations that it creates a lot of disconnect between the boots on the ground and the person making the decision. Even the police department doesn't have that many layers. The chief has a lot more interaction with the patrolman. He is out there, he is with his team, and that is what I have seen and needs. And I feel that it is something that a structure should be put into place for transportation. So making sure that the transportation director is directly aligned to the town manager position, not Liz Harsgrove, but the town manager position is very important. That because it's such an essential service, it needs to have a direct line to the town manager. So that way that you have that working operation with all of the other departments. And then splitting off the actual operations and the business side of it. There is not specifically a business administrator who was in charge of all of the vendors, all the payroll and all of that. Those items were all split apart. And so there wasn't consistency. There wasn't actual identification of who was in charge of what. And when we had issues with efficiencies through the actual operations and the accountability for grant funding and reporting and all of those other things. So this is specifically assigned to the business administrator who would be in charge of all of that in collaboration with the transportation director. And then over to the other side is the operations and customer experience manager, who would then oversee the actual transportation operators who are a combo of the actual operators and the dispatch. So it allows for growth, it allows for development, it allows the way that this is structured, there's fewer layers, clearer leadership, there's real defined roles and responsibility that I can then hold accountable when there's personnel matters that I need to take action on. And also it reduces the number of steps and people involved, reducing the number of cooks in the kitchen that can make the decisions, and so you can make them faster and get people to where they need to go. The place, so we talked about the people, now we're talking about the place. So my proposal talks about actually a very comprehensive look in reimagining what the South County Connector can do and bring to the community on the economic development components of reaching their strategic priorities. There is a strong brand that's already established. There is a clear presence. We are a hub for connection, so now we need to take it to the next level. And so we are making it more, my proposal and my plan is to make it more professional. There are, for example, there are magnets on the cars right now. We need to actually have, so it's very easy for somebody to remove that. And utilize a vehicle, a town vehicle per se. I can't say that it has happened, but it just leaves more risk for the label to be removed from a vehicle. So having the cars officially wrapped and identified like all other town vehicles that we have. So we're being consistent with our expectations for this program. The same thing with uniforms, the same thing with actually branding it as the town of Great Barrington. So South County Connector, the magnet on the vehicle does not have the town seal on it. Nobody can identify that they're who owns it. And that is very important when you are out in the field and you are representing an organization, you need to have accountability. So I deliberately label my car with stickers that people can identify me to hold me even account. My personal vehicle is very easily identified for anybody who has seen me drive. That holds me accountable to keep me like under watch and doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And that is how it should be applied even in our professional lives, I think, not just personal lives. So, that is what taxpayers pay us to do, is be professionals. So this goes and talks about, my plan talks about those things of how do we need to enhance the service up to the actual place? Like the police vehicles are easily identifiable, they have a standard in place, and so this is the same thing. Next is the actual process. In addition to the actual workings and interactions between departments, this is something that is brand new that I am highlighting for you. That I have talked to a number of the town departments, especially in the actual community development or the community connection and access section. I am creating and it's just very fitting that it's football season now. These are my special teams. So you have an organizational chart, but this is now an operationals chart. And these are teams that are going to be working together on achieving your strategic priorities. So again, this is not just about transportation. This is about knocking down the silos and making people accountable in your actual organization and how do they work together. And so, for example, transportation, I feel from that relational exercise mapping that we did as all 120 employees, that is where I took them, where they have strengths, weaknesses, and there's opportunities. And I created these operational organizational charts for you. So then they can meet on a monthly basis, they can work together on problem solving things and achieve also their strategic priorities. So as you can see, transportation will be wrapped into Council on Aging. They'll be working with the libraries directly and also veteran services and making sure that those memberships in the community have access to all of the services. But it doesn't mean that this is actually how the only team that they're going to be working on. There's going to be overlap, and in the report, it shows also that there's overlap. And I showed a relational mapping specifically for these teams. So you can see the strength, the strong relationships and the medium and then the lower relationships. So that is in the actual plan itself. So now implementation, and I know that's a big question, is how do we get from, how do I improve faster and getting services back up and running for transportation in the South County Connector? So I'm happy to say that I have been in conversations with Mass DOT and the BRTA. They are giving us advisory support and guidance on what to do, how to do it, making sure we're in compliance when we have such a reduced staff initially. But I have also been in contact with Kathleen, the executive director of the BRTA, and she is going to be providing and connecting us to their assistant general manager, who will be working at least 3 days a week with us during the interim while we find permanent support. And in addition to that momentum that we're building, I have been working or had a conversation with their commuter service system, Kelos or Kelos, I can't remember the pronunciation, I'm sorry. But I am in discussions with them to assist us with actually spearheading actual recruitment for the director position, the operations managers, as well as the operators. Now, that is one layer of recruitment that we are doing on a much broader sense, but we have been advertising in the shopper's guide. We have advertised on the town's website, doing promotions through media releases. I have promoted the director's position on LinkedIn. I have reached out to actually the Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority and other connections that I personally have, and seeing if they have anybody that is interested in recruiting to assist us with that. So I am actively engaged in the recruitment, and Mass DOT is fully aware of our efforts and my laser focus on getting this up and running as quick as possible. But also to that end, I want to make sure that it's not just a 98.6 degree temperature person. The people that we need to bring on need to be aligned with the actual mission and the reason, and understanding the purpose of being a public servant and the importance and the responsibility of that. So that way we can have consistency and elongation through the services, because that is one of the things that was identified by the community, that they want established relationships with the drivers. And that was something that not just recently, but has actually over the 9 months that I've identified, that there has been significant inconsistencies with staffing in this particular division or program. And that, I feel, is because of the disconnect between not being established through the organization and not having a true identity established. So they don't have a direct contact with the town manager. They don't really know who they are. They think it's a separate limb off of it. It's not part of the actual body and structure of the organization. So that is what we're working on. That is why the job descriptions were worked on and developed, and showing that they are part of achieving the mission of the town. Lastly, part of the implementation is doing the outreach and making sure that all of the towns are aware that we are motivated, that we are aligned, that I am going to be collaborating with them and sharing. So all of the partners that with all of the towns in the region, the RTAC engagement, making sure that the IMAs with the towns are secured and negotiated, and building that partnership with them, and making sure that there is constant communication. So that is also part of my plan moving forward. And with that, I believe I'm done with my slides. But I have staff here for any questions on particulars that were in the plan. That
Four questions to start with, or comments. Bill, go ahead.
I have a couple, but to start with, again, thanks for all the work on this. Just big picture, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say, everyone supports the South County Connector. I think everyone believes it's critical to our community. I know I've heard it from many residents in a variety of circumstances, and I think others have heard it. So you know, if there's a view out there that this is not, that some in town staff or the select board doesn't view this as a critical resource to the town, I just don't think that's true. So I would propose that everyone, obviously, we want residents to speak up, but I think, again, I'll speak for myself. We know this is critical. We know this is important to the community. And it just turns out it needs to be fixed. It's not really, it hasn't really been working very well. It's a very complex undertaking with vast majority of operational personnel and mechanical issues. So anyway. You've been working on this project for quite a while. It's very complex. Can you speak to the personnel issues and reduction in service that's occurred? I don't know exactly. It's occurred over the last couple of months. I'm gonna throw it out there. And, you know, is there any relationship between those service reductions that have occurred and the work that you were doing? Or is it the case that the service reductions just highlighted the importance of the work that you were doing?
I think a combination of both, Phil. To be honest, I had been working with the former director for months on job descriptions, and it was a collaborative effort that took a long time. So, you know, the report, and I'm just gonna say the report is one-sided, as one individual. It wasn't drafted by both him and me. So, it left out a lot of, parts to it that, the claim that jobs weren't posted for 2 months, even though he implored that it should, that's concerning, because he was working with me on crafting job descriptions. And the number of times of back and forth going to actually finalize something that we have been talking about, making sure that it was aligned with the actual organization and preparing us for this transfer into a department. That part unfortunately delayed the proposal and the publication of those job opportunities. I feel that, again, like I said in my opening remarks, as well as through the presentation, I feel that I am not going to let bad habits continue. That is my responsibility to stop bad habit. Job descriptions and hiring people under false expectations I'm not gonna attract somebody when it doesn't actually clearly define what my expectation is for them. So if it doesn't say in the job description and announcement that it is not aligned with the mission of the organization, then I'm wasting my time, my staff's time, and the people that are applying for these jobs, that we're setting everybody up for failure, and I needed to stop the bleed immediately. So that is one of the reasons that there was this gap, but I have to say that I looked at actually over time, the full fiscal year of 26, and it was occurring. There were gaps in big chunks even prior to us beginning to advertise internally that we were going to be transitioning into an actual department and bringing this under the same expectations as all the other departments.
Now, you know, part of this is one of the issues here is how is all this getting paid for?
Yes.
So I went back and looked at the budget, your budget.
Yeah.
And how it talked about transit. And frankly, it was, I think this is part of the problem that you're trying to address. It was a bit murky how it all sort of flowed through our Great Barrington budget back in the winter. And I think you're trying to correct that.
Yes.
And in the middle of the budget process, I believe you provided us an update and basically you said, and this is in your report, we've been able to determine that the town is devoting significant staffing to this project that's not sort of completely obvious in the South County Connector budget. And you estimated it was about 180,000.
Just from one department's worth.
Right, and so, and then you added that to our town budget to reflect that allocation of time and resources.
Yes.
So, so I presume that your proposed structure is gonna allow us to sort of get a better and more clear understanding as to who's paying for what. Particularly the complex, and exciting issue about how much each of the participating towns is contributing and the value they're getting from it, and whether or not all that's fair to all our respective taxpayers.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. This is a department that 2/3 of it is reliant on grant funding.
Right.
From the state. Over $600,000 of their almost $1 million budget, not in-kind services budget, just their actual costs. That is 2/3 of it is subsidized by the state. If that goes away, and that's a very concerning element of this whole predicament, is that if that state grant funding goes away, because they get it from the federal government, and it goes away, we're in a pickle.
Right.
We're in the brine, we're not just a pickle. And so we have to position ourselves, and hence why also I feel it is very important that I get a closer connection. The town manager is closer connected to making sure that that is sustainable, at least for Great Barrington. But right now, it is for the region, and I'm looking at it regionally, and that is how I'm moving forward. But I need to assure that Great Barrington is protected and that service is protected for the residents. And so that is very concerning, but the fee structure, Phil, is another added layer. We need to be having, the fees were not, I mentioned that in my report also, is that the fees didn't go through the public process. So they were just adopted on a staff level through recommendations from the actual advisory committee. And that part element, how is it assessed? How is it involved? What are the public involvement on that? So that too is something that is necessary if we're gonna have it actually under the umbrella of the town's operations, and it needs to be formalized that way.
So a couple of things on Garfield. I think there's a lot of layers here. And I think first one, which Phil and Liz just talked about, is grant funding. Grant funds are only as good as when they're here. And many times we get grant funds, and when they go away, we don't have a plan. And whatever organization, it's not just Great Barrington. Because the grant funds, if they're used for one-time projects, that's tremendous. But when they're used for trying to sustain something, you have to be very careful. And that feels really good that we're gonna have a plan with these grants.
Yes.
Aren't there.
Because I see that, Steve, as very parallel to our dependency on free cash. That it is not reliable, and we cannot pay for operations for something that is not reliable. So we need to begin shifting to something that is going to be sustainable, if that is what the values and the direction of the community wants, so.
So the other thing that's interesting is this pilot program blossomed very quickly because there's such a need. And I don't think anyone could have predicted it would have blossomed this much, but it did. And I think we outgrew the model we had very, very quickly. And I realize there's been a bump in the road the last couple of months, but I think it's leading to an improvement in services and actually is gonna make this more sustainable. I think there are some regional partners I've talked to, because this is a regional, it starts in Great Barrington, but it's regional, and then all the towns that are part of this are very important. There are some regional partners who feel left out of it. That's because you can't talk to everyone in every town. So if you talk to the town manager and there's someone else in town who feels like that they are more important or as important, and it's not getting directed there, we've taken some shots with that are unfortunate.
So on that note, Steve, I actually did outreach with the towns that we support, and I did that starting in actually March and April. I had conversations with the town managers. I ask them, what do they like, what do they don't like, how do we need to improve? So I talked to Stockbridge, I talked to Egremont, I talked to Sheffield. I have talked to all the towns and directly and it's, so that I've heard that's what is incorporated here in my understanding of the importance of what we're providing, not just our residents, but for the region.
And we will continue to talk to them, and anyone in the town, that the town managers or the town leaders say are important to this. It's one of the unfortunate things is in print, online, there's been a lot of falsehoods. And we understand that there's been, you know, that we've cut some down, but hiring staff for the sake of hiring staff without job descriptions, without clear defined roles, would have continued to go down a road that really would have been dangerous. That we needed to take a deep breath and look at this to make this a sustainable and long-term investment for our partners and for us. And I realize there's been some inconvenience, more than some, but I think in the end, this will be a better program and more sustainable, that will last for years to come. And I think that's really important. Arthur?
I just had a couple working questions, if you will. I'm hoping when you have monthly meetings, you might split them up, so there'll definitely always be drivers available when you're having a meeting. So in other words, can you meet with maybe half the staff, but half the other staff will be driving? And then when you're done with them, you can meet good, so not everybody's pulled off the road at once, because you said you wanted to have monthly meetings. And
that is for the service for the special teams. So the transportation director would be meeting monthly with the council on aging director, the library director, and the veterans.
it had nothing to do.
It has nothing to do with the drivers. It's on a 30,000 or 10,000 foot level, so to speak. But I would have actually a captain that would spearhead that team. And so with that team, I've identified the council on aging director that would be the captain for that team, and she would make sure that they meet on a monthly basis. And then she would report back to me on the progress of achieving your strategic priorities that align with those four different departments. And then she would then work with other special team captains.
Yeah, I was just curious.
So it begins working and meshing up that siloed, like, so they're not individually working, that they really start creating a web of support, and that's very important.
I haven't heard speak of it, I haven't seen the whole 59 pages. Is there any, how are the customers going to pay? Will the pay rate still be the same? How will they know about it? I've used the services, and I found out just by riding, did not know ahead of time that you had to have, I think at one time they wanted credit cards and not cash. Now you have to have a booklet, which I had nothing about. I don't know if anyone else is aware of that, how that will work. I know at one point it was $3, but if 3 people are going to the same place, it still only costs $3. So I'm wondering if those kind of things are still gonna be in place, which is important, because some people's wallets, they need to know what they're gonna be paying, how much and when.
Right, so one of the benefits for this plan, Garfield, is that you will be the one who votes on the fee structure. You haven't been included as the top elected official that actually by charter, you have to adopt the fees. So we have not been in compliance with our own charter. So you are one of 5 members that will vote on the actual fee structure, how it will happen, when discounts will be offered, when, like New Year's Eve, if we're gonna be offering free rides, all of those things. The staff does not have the authority. I do not have the authority to approve those fees. I am making sure that the services that are under our umbrella, the risks are mitigated, and that is one of them, so, okay?
Yeah, thank you, Liz. And yeah, there's, obviously, it's very clear, this is, people get very emotional about it, transportation in general, and it's, for the last year or so, I just hear a lot of people praising the service and how it's helped them keep jobs and stores stay open. So obviously that is not lost on any of us here. I guess I just, we talked about grant funding and I just wanna look into that a little bit more in regards of how can we protect ourselves with how things change so rapidly and funds disappear. What sort of steps would we have to take on our budget level to protect ourselves if tomorrow we wake up and all that funding gets disappeared?
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to do another assessment on what is on the ground level, on the Great Barrington level versus the regional level for us to assure that people who arrive in here can actually move around town. And get to the hospital or get to the grocery store. And that is why it's very necessary that those special teams are actually activated, is because I need the community services departments, the directors talking to each other, so that way that's continuity, it remains. Now, as far as funding on a broader level, there may be different opportunities that we can capture through economic development and uses of the actual vehicles when we receive them through grant opportunities. That comes with conditions, and so we have to make sure that they are properly aligned. And that again also is another component. Are the grants that we're accepting aligned with our trust policy? And so I need to make sure that the community care team is reviewing the grants and the operations of the actual transportation department. And that was something that is in the pilot program for the community care team, that I need to assure that the grants that we're accepting on a state and federal level are aligned with the values of our community through the trust policy. So that too is something that I need to identify and then make sure that you are aware that this is what we're signing up for. Are you committing, or do you want me to look in a different direction? Okay.
Then also, I know during budget season, it came up a few times with, there's a lot of vehicle costs. And at one point, we found out that Council on Aging used to have a van, would bring people on day trips or something like that.
Yeah.
Now with this new alignment, I would assume that we wouldn't run into any issues with that if the Council on Aging wanted to go, senior center wanted to go on a trip or something, that would all, with the documentation on how that could go.
Yes, I've been actively working on strengthening that relationship between Council on Aging and the transportation. So even in the last 3 months, I have been attentive on that relationship and the support systems, but hence why I am actually naming the Council on Aging director as the captain of that special team. So that way she has engagement and involvement in making sure that the constituents for the Council on Aging get the services, because most of the grants that are accepted, especially for the vehicles, are actually dedicated for senior services support. And I want to make sure that that is not forgotten, or that it is, there's other things that become distracting from their original purpose, so.
And then with hiring without job descriptions and everything else, I mean, was there, and I know in the report you talked about HR, but was with the way hiring was done before, was there background checks and all that stuff done, or how did that?
Yes, initially, but then there wasn't actually efforts internally within the transportation staffing to double check and make sure that licenses were active, or were they suspended, or any of those types of things. And so that is now in the actual job description for the business administrator, is to take on those responsibilities. So I can then hold that person accountable for double checking every year on a cycle and making sure drug testing is happening and all of the other Mass DOT and federal requirements that we are supposed to uphold.
Because we can't say that those were happening before.
I can say that some were, but not on, at least for back, the driver's licenses, I can say that they were not happening.
You could have been driving.
Yes.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to add into everything that's saying, thank you, Liz, for all the work on this plan. And I want to give a thank you to Tate for all of the work that went into creating this program.
Yes.
I was serving as the select board liaison for this when I first started, and thank you to not only to Tate, but to Chris, to Bill, Deb, to everyone who has served and kind of made this what it is. I truly think this is the program I'm the proudest of. We are trying to solve a very, very big problem. Without robust and reliable public transportation, will never be affordable and will never be accessible. Like we have to have a way forward on this. But it's also been, this program has been the victim of its own success from day one. Tate was always having to come up with new ways to kind of, the need just kept growing at such, the need was always there. And as people have come to rely on it, we just have to make sure that there's no chance that it will kind of, dip away. And I'm sorry that this transition is happening right now, but I think that we are on the path to making sure that we get to a place where it doesn't happen again.
100%, and that actually is my responsibility for any town administrator, is to make sure that when a service is successful, that it carries forward generation after generation.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually dissolve when the person walks away. And that is a problem when you have somebody that has, and I have been victim to that too. I have created a program in another community that was my baby, that really was my identity, and it had all my fingerprints on it. And I needed to make sure that when I transitioned away, that it could continue to be successful and meet the needs of the community. And that is my charge right now, is to make sure that it continues after new generations come in.
Yeah. And I think part of that for me is finding a way to create a dedicated revenue stream for this program.
Yes.
Just kind of to make sure that it's built in and has a sustainable, that we don't have to worry about whatever the federal government is doing, or if there is a federal government. But that this program will continue.
So thanks, Ben, for thanking Tate and Chris and everyone who's been involved with it. So very well said there. Given how important this service is, I feel we need to be very clear about, the grant funding that we have and the grant funding that we don't have.
Yeah. So
is it generally correct to say we have the $600,000 for fiscal 27?
yes, we do.
And what about thereafter? Is it just?
We actually had a conversation and got confirmation today from Mass DOT that there is additional money available for us for the following fiscal years if we continue the service as it is, and they are looking at this presentation, they're looking at my proposal, they questioned everything, and we assured them that we are moving forward so it is available for next year as well.
For fiscal 28. Okay, well, that's great news. I think that the other side of that is it sounds like we're gonna have some very interesting conversations about the fee structure. Because, the fully costed cost per ride is obviously significantly it's significantly above what we're charging people right now, right?
Right, but that goes with all services.
Right.
But you do want to keep a line kind of with where is the sweet spot for recovering some type of cost. So when you look at your building department fees, right, it's not gonna cover all of the actual building inspectors and the salaries and everything and the benefits. And the same thing with the police department. They don't generate a lot of revenue, but what is the return value? And we need to determine that, and that comes from public conversations on our level, on the town manager and the select board level of, we can have recommendations from the RTAC, but it needs to be on this level as to what exactly is the return on investment and where is the fee structure and where do we need to, so that can guide me and guide you and guide the finance committee and then guide town meeting.
Okay, and I'm certainly not advocating for higher fares. I'm just saying that it really comes back to the issue about we're relying on grant funding for
Yeah.
2/3 of the budget. If we don't have the grant, we have a huge problem, and it's not something, it's, you know, it's obviously a very difficult issue to, yeah, it'll be something difficult to fix, but yeah, if we have it
So
for,
everything. Increase the fare, which you're not.
I'm not advocating.
Not
Yeah,
advocating,
yeah,
I'm not putting words in your mouth.
Yeah.
But increase it to where we break even without looking at other
Right.
sources of funding. We probably won't need the department because people can't. afford
No,
it.
I agree. So I'm just highlighting what
Bill says.
I'm stating the obvious.
Yeah.
We're relying on grant funding. If we don't have the grant, we have a huge problem. Period, full stop. But we know it's a critical service to all of our residents. and-
Right. So one of the strategies though, Bill, is,
Yeah.
is it responsible of us to actually be so heavily dependent on one grant?
Right.
That's another component of this. So if we are starting to align the services with other things such as economic development, maybe there is an opportunity that a portion of that can be relieved. So we're not so heavily dependent on one fee amount coming, one revenue source coming in. And that is a strategy that we need to be looking at so we can have consistency across a longer period of time.
I could make a pitch very early in the game, but something like paid parking or one, then you have a
You
revenue
have-
stream.
yeah.
That pays for transportation, allows you to keep fares down, but also creates an incentive for people to use public transportation instead of cars. Reduces traffic on the roads.
That's right. So another opportunity that if it ever comes down, let's say room for meals tax and allocating a portion that to spend for transportation so people can actually get to restaurants or to hotels. And those, again, you're right, Ben, that is exactly what we need to do, but that's a policy decision. And that comes from you, and that's why we have to have the fee structures and talking about transportation. And if it's a department, it's on paper, it has to come before you officially.
So where we're gonna go now, we'll have citizens speak. I'm gonna just go over one brief thing, number 7. Then I'll go to Eileen, who's had her hand up for a while. And that's a continued discussion on 79 Bridge Street Searles. We still don't have anything in writing from town council. Whether we have anything or not, September 14th, we're talking about.
Is that 14?
Yeah, that's the next meeting. So we're going to talk about it, and that, because that needs to move ahead. So let's start with citizen speak here, 3 minutes. We'll let Eileen go first.
Well, Eileen, Mooney of the newsletter. How much are KEOLIS, I think that's the spelling, and BRTA being paid for their services, or are they both doing it free? That was my immediate question.
I have not received any communication with the recruiting on cost estimates, but the BRTA services are at 0 cost because we are a member of them. So we are getting 3 days of support for the interim basis at 0 additional cost.
As far as you know from both.
No, she said from the RTA, we haven't heard from the other.
Okay, so we don't know whether we're using them actually then?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. How much does each town pay now to use the connector?
Yeah, go ahead. We're not gonna answer a lot of questions because it's really citizen speak, but Eileen had her hand up early and then, you know.
It is assessed based upon usage. I don't have the numbers with me. But it's anywhere between, I think, like 15,000, 25,000, and I think up to 50,000 for as different various assessments for each municipality.
And does the connector have a budget that it produces? on proposed spending? Does it, has it submitted
Yes.
a budget to the town?
Yes, it's in the budget book for FY 27.
Okay.
In the operating budget on page 156, I believe.
And
It wasn't,
150 to 156.
okay, and I have one final question. Does
Okay,
it use the town's bank accounts and town checks? Or does it have its own?
It uses the town's resources. Checks and then
thanks, certainly. Okay, now citizen speak. Let's get started. All right.
Hi, Donna Jacobs, 260 Park Street, and I want to talk about housing again. A couple of weeks ago, I was really glad to hear Liz talk about needing a plan. And tonight, I'm really, really glad to hear about a housing production plan that we maybe, that's underway. But I do want to comment on it because I think it's important to emphasize, in responding to you, Phil, about finding housing, sites and development opportunities. Everybody gets really excited. We want to build houses. Let's go find some sites and let's go, build on them. But I'm thinking that the plan is a lot safer and less risky, as somebody who's living across the street from an already designated building site. I really want to see a lot of planfulness and that people don't get too excited about just putting up houses and moving people in, because that's not quite going to happen. We need to be more careful about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Juanita Shapiro, 78 Main Road. So I'm asking Chairman Bannon, Town Manager Liz Hartsgrove, please email me the community preservation plan that's going to be discussed on September 2nd. I specifically did not do a records request and I'm overburdening town, but it might be nice to make it accessible on the town's website, so anyone that's interested can do. Thank you.
Is it Chris on the town website? It is on the town website, but we'll send it to you also.
Please send it to me because I can't find it on
Yeah.
the website.
No problem, I have the same problem with the
Maybe
website.
tonight would be really appreciated.
Sure, we'll get it tonight, but tomorrow morning.
Stay up.
Okay, who else? Anyone else? David?
I think we all can agree that the connector is just been a wonderful thing. I mean, we haven't had this much flexibility since we had 2 taxis. And downtown Barrington, which is a very long time ago. But at any rate. I appreciate that everyone's saying this is trying to go. However, I think we're like losing the thread here. I mean, part of the genius of what Tate was doing was saying, looking at surplus capacity that's already in the community, surplus time among its citizens that want to contribute. And, the age of Uber, and, if we did this as a community property kind of arrangement, you can negotiate all those things and reduce the capital requirements, the operating costs to be able to do that. And these won't do various permutations, but the reason why Great Barrington gave it a start in the first place was that the promise that Tate gave us was essentially a Southern Berkshire Regional Transit Authority that would stand on its own legs and really be about constantly recruiting more community support in very practical and simple ways. A lot of towns, even New Marlboro, and the only reason why the connector doesn't do more business on the French towns is that, it really takes time to build up those connections. But the fact is, folks in New Marlboro need to come to Great Barrington to do most of their business. So it is in our interest to be at the center of very important. However, we get into branded cars and uniforms and all, it's like, don't overcomplicate something that already proved. My personal story really was around my brother-in-law in Milwaukee, who had MS for 28 years. And for one window in time, he's like tied to a motorized electric wheelchair. And he could only leave, it was like to use calculants, they could only give you a guarantee if it was a doctor's appointment. Otherwise, you're on your own, it costs $300. And what the connector did was made it so that he could actually go and buy a pair of jeans for the first time in decades. To be able to go out to dinner with his girlfriend, just here in town. There's so many stories like that across town. But this is more than just a taxi. And we can't forget them.
Thanks. James Garzon.
James Garzon, 84 North Plain Road. I just want to start with the Housatonic Waterworks. Mr. Mercer, as the owner of Housatonic Waterworks, has repeatedly failed to meet basic obligations. He was cited for withholding harmful water quality results, He blamed Great Barrington for hydrants that produced no water during the Division Street fire and continues to miss required regulatory deadlines. For more than a decade, the Select Board has remained reactive. Numerous executive sessions have been held with no meaningful progress, obviously. This new letter is not going to change anything if the underlying behavior remains the same. Mr. Mercer has repeatedly ignored requirements and now is ignoring the Great Barrington's water bills. It's incredible. I mean, this raises serious ethical questions. And I continuously ask, is it appropriate for Jim to sit on the CPC and vote on the town, how the town allocates CPA funds? The town is actively litigating against this company, and now he currently owns over $100,000 in unpaid water charges. I don't know how allowing him to participate in decisions involving public funds while under litigation and in arrears is not a conflict of interest, at least at minimum, ethically or morally. He should be stepping down from the CPA. And I wish the town spent as much time on priority one issues as the town has spent on the GB transportation, which we're calling it South Connector. It said Great Barrington should lead and take some flag from other towns. How about showing the same vigor with Housatonic Waterworks, PCBs, developers, the Division Street Bridge that's been under construction for, a decade maybe, and other priority one issues. It's more of the same with our town losing businesses, suffering under the current enormous tax burden and more to come. Thank you.
Eileen, I think you've had one chance, but I'm being really nice tonight.
It's a different topic.
Yeah, it doesn't say different topics, you've done a great topic, but go ahead, Eileen.
I would like a copy of the letter that you're sending to the DPU, please.
Okay. We'll get it out tomorrow.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, seeing no one else. Oh, come on up.
Hi, Jada Hopkingo. I live in Alfred. My partner and I are business owners in town. I'm here to express concern over license plate readers in town. I think they are antithetical to the alleged values of our community, given the Elizabeth Freeman Center as a local advocate for victims of domestic violence. Considering these types of license plate readers have been used by members of law enforcement to stalk their domestic partners. Considering the cannabis industry in our community and our position abutting multiple other states, and considering that these devices have been used to target interstate proprietors or buyers of legal cannabis. Beyond just our town, the use of AI in addition to these types of surveillance devices is an inversion of our justice system by shifting the burden of proof onto defendants. The intelligence here is frequently incorrect, misidentifying people, vehicles, and as a result, innocent people are accused of crimes, fined, or even jailed. I think the installation alone sets a dangerous precedent. I would urge this body to do everything in its power to reject these cameras and deinstall them immediately and take whatever actions are necessary to ensure they do not reappear anywhere in our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Janet Pullman. I'm 122 Taconic Avenue. And I want to thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk tonight. I'm a former driver for the South County Connector, and I'm also a longtime volunteer. Sorry, I'm nervous. A longtime volunteer at the People's Pantry. And I want to speak to how the recent reduction of South County service, South County Connector service has impacted our shoppers at the pantry. We've had a lot of people who can't get to the pantry because they can't schedule rides during our distribution hours. And that's leading to like, but they're not getting their nutritional needs met. And it's been that way for a couple of months. So I know it's not a hypothetical. So I'm just here to advocate for full restoration of the South County Connector services and ask that be done as quickly as possible to meet the needs of the people who can't be here to speak for themselves.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Selectboard, Bill.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I just want to reiterate that. Again, I think the South County Connector, the Tri-Town, from origin as the Tri-Town Connector to the South County Connector to whatever comes next, is integral to the future of this town. I know, and I think we are all on the same page, and if there's any question, I think I want to quash that, just, we need public transportation to make this town work, to make this whole area work, and I know I will be doing everything to make sure that this board is pushing that forward.
Yeah, I just have a question on the detour signs that are in town. I don't know what detouring is going.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny, Garfield, I was gonna ask, was this, or we won't get into it tonight, but there are detour signs that don't have any explanation on them, and they're pointed in opposite directions.
Right,
yeah,
yeah.
bottom of the county, one points one way and one points out, one points to the right. And I have no sense of direction, but if I follow the detour signs, you can see me for years, but some people might be happy, but. So, it's a good question.
I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out. I know this is a very sensitive topic that we've reached tonight, and I again agree with Ben as far as how not only for the town of Barrington, but for the surrounding towns and all the business that happens inside our town because of this, and it is very important. And I know that we'll get there, and I know that you have a good set of plans here, and I have full faith that we'll get this done. So, thank you.
I just have one technical thing. I'm not disagreeing with anyone who spoke. Before I see a headline that the Housatonic Water owes the town $100,000. The Great Barrington Fire District is not a town department. It's not the Great Barrington Fire Department. It's the Great Barrington Fire District, and they don't owe the town anything. They do owe, from all reports, the fire district, which I say quasi separate municipal agency. Just so I can avoid headlines, that gives me heartburn.
Smart.
Okay, so just everyone's clear on that. Okay, and with that, by unanimous consent, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Very much.